talking a little bit about the sections within the 1004 Residential Appraisal Report form. And I thought it might be useful to use some practical illustrations on how some of this information might be put into a residential appraisal report form. So we're going to start on the site section of a new home that and oftentimes what you can do is if you save comments within the in your quick lists, you can do this. Now I'm going to use a quick list for highest and best use where I'm saying the present. Now in this case it's not a present, it's under construction, so I'm going to say the proposed use, and then I've got a section on page 3 where we go into a little more detail. In this case, the property doesn't have the natural gas. It's in a private area, or a subdivision with privately owned lots. The utilities are typical of the area, and there are no adverse features. But here's what I see a lot of times is appraisers go in and put canned comments talking about surveys and what you have and don't have. Oftentimes those same comments can be located in kind of your general boilerplate, which most lenders prefer to see grouped together someplace. And so what I like to put here is I like to describe the lot. And so give an illustration. In this case, the lot is situated on the south side of the street. The lot is level. It's near street grade. And it's got good physical features. Now this particular lot backs an open space with a trail area. So I'm not going to type it all out and have you go through that tedium, but I would put something to the effect that the lot backs an open space with a slightly better than typical view. And I think one of the things that we fail to do in writing some of our reports is telling our clients why we've rated the properties that we have. So if this lot has a better than typical view, and I'm going to give it a beneficial view rating over on the back side of the report, which I'm going to do, then I want to make sure I've explained what that beneficial view is on page 1. One of the things we oftentimes find problems with is that appraisers don't maintain consistency from page 1 to page 2. And so one of the other little tips within total that I like is if you've got descriptions that oftentimes will apply to a property, you can go and get a series of fields filled in, and then if you save that in the first field that you want, so in this case I've got alternate 2, which is this is for new construction. I'll just hit that and it fills that whole section in. To me that's pretty cool. I like that. And then but oftentimes what we'll see is it says additional features, special energy efficiency items, etc. And oftentimes I think appraisers think that it only applies to special energy efficiency items, but it can apply to a wide range of things. So I might want to describe the features associated with the property. It's got a covered porch, it's got a large covered patio, it's got raised ceilings that are taller than normal. I've got tile floors through the living areas. I've got granite countertops, and along with any other things that you think are upgraded from what would normally be associated with the house. Now here's the next part. And I see this routinely. In fact, I had one of my brothers had sent me an appraisal that they had done, or that had been done. It's on a multi-million-dollar home, and there was one sentence in this section of the report. And that kind of is really a tragic thing in my view. Now, this is a proposed house, but what I want to do is explain to my client a little bit about this. In this case, this is a good quality home. Single level design. It's got a functional floor plan with two So I think the thing that we sometimes do is we don't put enough information in here. Now, if I'm coming in and saying that the property's been remodeled, I'm going to hit this button and then I'm basically going to tell my client what happened. Did they just do a cosmetic overview, or did they replace cabinets and counters and appliances? And if they did, if I know the cost, it's appropriate to include that. I may not give it a dollar for dollar value, but I think it helps the reader to better understand the nature of what's happened. I think it's appropriate to go in and talk about replacement of hot water heaters, mechanical systems, other things that have been done to the property, and we so often just put these canned comments in here that at the end are rather meaningless for the client. And I think it's always a really good idea to explain my condition rating. Why? And a lot of these properties, we get in situations where we're kind of on the edge. Is it, it's pretty good quality home. Is it good or average or somewhere in between? What do you do? I don't know. That's why we get paid the big bucks, is to go make those judgment calls. But the problem that we oftentimes run into is that we are not consistent. I have seen countless appraisals where the house in the property section talks about being a good quality home, but in the appraisal section they've got it rated as something different. It's either average or and it's not consistent with the comments that were provided on page 1. So one of the things that I like to do, especially on properties where you start falling into this in-between area, is to go in and provide a little bit refinement on some of the things. So I normally have a upgrades / other, so that if I have a house that is average quality, but it has some upgraded features, so I'm kind of in between, but it's a little better than the normal house, I can now come in here and say, this is a good good home with upgraded features, and then I will normally pick a dollar per square foot number. So I might come in and say, well, this is almost an 1,800 square foot home, and I think there's maybe $5 a square foot due to upgraded floor coverings and counters. And so I may put, when I'm looking at my comparable, and it's average, and I'm going to say, well, I think it's inferior by a little bit, and it allows me then to go in and make some of those fine-tuned adjustments that oftentimes aren't made because the property isn't, because we're falling in between the cracks there. And so I think that there are ways for us to better reflect some of the things that we're doing and explain to our clients the process and how we've come up with the conclusions that we have. And as we do that, I think we provide better appraisal assignment results. Now, one of the common things, and you'll see we're coming down here to the this home's under construction, is not done. How often are you putting in there the comments required by USPAP that this is a hypothetical assignment, and you've got required language that needs to be included? And so it's important to make sure that as we go through, we start dealing with some of these issues. Now, one of the things that I like to do in laying out my appraisal, you'll notice that you go from comp 1, 2, 3, comp 4, 5, 6, comp 7, 8, 9. Now, I am not going to use 9 comps on this, but I oftentimes have my template set up so that I have that. And so what I will do now is, after I finish the comps, I want to come in and talk a little bit about my adjustments, my analysis. And I have some templated stuff. Templates can be the kiss of death if you're not careful. And so I use this as a way to go in and edit it. All the comps I'm going to be using are current. And then I'm going to explain to my client that the comps I've used are current enough. I don't think market conditions have changed from the effective date of the appraisal to for the dates on some of these comps. In here, I'm going to explain any location differences that may exist, or explain to my client that the sales are located in the same area with no significant differences, and so I don't need to be able to explain that. I'm going to explain how did I come up with my price per square foot for lot size differences. And I have set up in my little worksheet, this is one of the really cool things with Total, is you got an integrated worksheet. I've made this worksheet myself, so it's not something that comes with Total, but what will happen is that I can go in this case I haven't put the comps in, so it's not going to be able to show you this, but I'm using if the typical home value is $350,000, and oops, let me get it in the right place here, because I've got this set up so that it will automatically import this data into your report, which is kind of cool. And I think I've shown you how to do this on another video, but it's going to tell me my site value based on my analysis here, I think is about 70,000. If the ratio needs to be a little higher, I can change it. Well, in this case, it's 77,000. If the lot is, and these are smaller lots, 6,500 square feet, it's saying the price per square foot for the lot based on this analysis is almost 12 bucks a foot. And it's probably not too far off in this particular case. I'm now going to determine what is my surplus land rate. Is it 20% of my base? Is it 30? Well, usually we're finding 20-25% not too far off the mark, and so then that allows me then to use that as a number. I can come in here and say I adjusted the land at $3 a square foot. Now this one sits on a view. I've gone in and I've kind of explained my logic on doing the lot, and I can come in and explain now that this property backs open space. It's got about a 10 to 15% view premium. I now have a site value of about 80,000 bucks, and I can then come in and say I'm going to look at my view premium is going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $15,000 when compared to a typical lot. I'll put a little analysis in here on some of the cost, which does something similar. So I want to explain every single element that is on the adjustment grid. I like to put it right after the comparable sales are completed, just so my reader can find it easily. And then I'm going to have my market condition analysis stuff here so that I can use this as part of my analysis, have it all lumped together. Once I've done that, then I move on to the next part, which is my cost approach. And this is a new home, so I want the cost approach in, and I will then put that as part of my analysis, and I'm not going to go through and do the complete cost approach in this case, but it gives you a way to be able to put some of this stuff together so that you can do it easily and and have that done in such a way that hopefully your clients can figure it out. Now, the other thing that I like to do is, if I've putting a supplemental certification in here, I like to lump these things together. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm putting my COVID stuff in because as of this, we've got problems with the COVID deal. And so I'm putting in my fee information. I'm looking at my data to determine what the reasonable marketing period is. I'm telling my client what kind of report it is. And then I will come in and I like to lump my exhibits now in some kind of an order which more or less follows the report. So we start with the site, so I've got my site exhibits. We followed by the building. Then I'm going to provide an aerial map that shows where this stuff is at, and I'll make a location map. Then I'm going to have my subject photos, which will then provide the photo exhibits. Then I'll have my comp photos. I think it's a real mistake to do what a lot of appraisers classify as additional scope of work. I think that's a mistake. I think you can run into problems by requiring yourself to go do an additional scope of work every time. Now, I may want to put some compliance stuff in here. The appraisal's intended to comply with FIREA. I've got some intended user clarification. I want to make sure I'm meeting USPAP requirements to define my market value. And then I'm going to clarify my scope of work. And what is the assignment? What is the scope of work? This is just to clarify, it's not additional. And then I'm going to explain what an exterior inspection includes and what a complete complete visual inspection does and does not include. And just some of these kinds of things, they're kind of a cover yourself deal, but I like to explain what method I used for measuring the properties and what are some of the things that constitute adverse factors. And we'll put that in at the back of the report along with my definitions that are required. And I believe that this then provides a reasonable way for appraisers to be able to put all of the information in this report that is needed, but is not cluttered up and scattered. I've seen some appraisals where you've got stuff randomly scattered in the report, and as a reviewer it drives you absolutely crazy. So anyway, just a few musings of mine on ways that you can go in and hopefully make your reports a little easier to read and deal with some of the issues that we oftentimes find ourselves dealing with. Best to all, thanks.